All right, it's Thursday night, so we are going to have fun tonight. You know how I know we're going to have fun? Clemson was 4-0 on the baseball field last week, including a sweep of, last week, last weekend, and last night. 4-0, sweep of Louisville, just like these two geniuses here predicted. I went with the lesser prediction. But anyway, Tigers are 4-0, and they crushed Coastal again last night. JP Priester in the middle, Casey the Beef Cregan on the right or left, depending on how you're looking at me. And fellas, JP, let's start with you. This team is gelling at a good time. Is it the right time? Have they peaked too soon? We'll get to that in a second, but the top of that lineup has turned into a really good, a really dangerous, as Casey would like to say, a dangerous top with Kenarella and Cooper Engel, Will Taylor, Caden Grice. They're all doing well. Tigers 4-0 since the last time we talked.
Yeah, and Billy Hammock and Riley Bertram's been on fire of late. I think he's hitting like 380, or coming into last night, he was hitting 389 in his last 9 games. So there's a lot of guys hitting the ball really well last night. And this is a team that has shown over the past month they can beat you in a lot of different ways. Some nights they're coming up with the clutch hits when they need them. Some nights they struggle in that regard. Did most of the weekend against Louisville. Saw him using some small ball. Saw him taking advantage of a inexperienced catcher. And then last night we see him using the long ball some. 3 home runs, another one-sided defeat of Coastal. And this team's rolling now. They now have 15 wins over top 50 RPI teams.
Yeah, and they've also played defense really well too, I would say.
That gets left out of this a little bit. Especially the middle of that infield has been exceptional most of the year. If Ben Blackwell's not all ACC first team, I'll be shocked.
That play by Bertram last night that he went up, and it was a sure single over his head. He went up and grabbed it, and while he was coming down, slung it over to Blackwell for a double play. It was impressive. But I think because of the hotness of the bats, I think they are overlooked. We are probably overlooking the fielding as a whole. But man, they're solid everywhere.
They got two shortstops in the middle of that infield. I mean, let's face it, Riley Bertram's a shortstop by nature, and he has shown off his glove many times this year too.
It's nice that we can have that, because I know I was asking you before the season, like, who's going to play where. And Riley Bertram came in as a 4-year starter at shortstop, and he slots over at a second base to let Blackwell play short. I mean, it's been great. Even third, Blake Wright's been great at third.
I fully expect. I just assumed, Bertram was going to play short, Blackwell was going to play second, because I had seen Bertram playing shortstop in the preseason. But man, it has worked out tremendously the way they have done it. They that middle of that infield is as good as it gets.
And they haven't outlawed the shift in college, so Bertram spends half of his time close to shortstop anyway. So, and the pitching, JP, let's see, they got 6 from Darden. I think he gave up 3 earned runs. Gordon had 6 shutout innings, and Caden Grice had 6 in the third, where he struck out 11. When is the last time? Probably back in Casey's days at Clemson. When's the last time you got 3 6+ inning starts in a weekend series? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. It's been a while. Something we have definitely not been accustomed to seeing from this Clemson pitching staff. And I think Austin Gordon and Caden Grice are getting a little bit better each week. Not to say Grice had his best stuff Sunday, because certainly he didn't. And he'd probably be the first to tell you that. I mean, but after about that, in that second or third inning, if you'd have told me he was going to go 6 1/3, I'd have never believed it. I figured it was going to be an early day for him. But when he made that play, when he caught that line drive, that was it. He was on after that. And if you watch the replay, when he spins around, he kind of shoots a look at that runner on second. To me, it almost looked like he was telling him that was it. That was your chance. And he shut him down after that. 11 strikeouts. He seemed to be getting better as the game went along. He seems to be getting better as the season goes along. Austin Gordon seems to be doing the same thing. Probably his best start of the season. 6 shutout innings, allowed just 1 hit. to me, the biggest question is on Friday. Ethan Darden, he's kind of been up and down a little bit, been solid at home, little inconsistent on the road. Road start this weekend, so we'll see what happens.
Beef, your take on the pitching staff over last weekend and last night, it was kind of an all-staff game.
Yeah, I think I'm such a broken record when it comes to this, but the consistency has really just worked out. Even though Darden's been down, they're still winning Friday night games. So, I guess our expectations are now becoming higher a little bit with these guys now that they're slotted into their roles. I think Austin Gordon is the MVP on the mound for this year. He's just been unbelievable on Saturdays. Obviously, Grice has been that anchor, JP using your word, anchor on Sundays, but he's I really, really, really like watching Austin Gordon pitch. He's got that he moves the ball out of his glove before he throws, and he keeps the ball down. So he hasn't really been beaten by a long ball, really, or hopefully it works out this weekend too, because he's going to be facing a heck of a lineup.
7 games to go in the regular season, then everybody's favorite ACC tournament. Tigers are 32-17. 14-10 in the ACC. As we said, they swept Louisville and beat Coastal. 5 straight ACC series wins. They've gone from 2-7. I think they're actually 2-8 in the ACC to 14-10. And number 11 in the RPI. If they can just maintain the next 7 games, JP, is this a team that hosts a regional?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I think if they maintain over the rest of the regular season, and don't go lay an egg in the ACC tournament, postseason baseball will be played again in Clemson this year. First time since 2018. Feels like it's been longer than that. Maybe that COVID year has a little bit to do with it, but it has been. Feels like it's been a long time coming, and I think we are going to see it. If you look at some of these projections, they're not on the bubble anymore. I think they are an 11 seed, as high as an 11 seed in one and 12 or 13 in the other one, if I'm not mistaken. But I think they are firmly entrenched as a host right now, and they would really have to kind of fall off a cliff these next 2 weeks to not be one of those host sites.
Now, we've only seen 49 games in the Eric Bakich era, but somehow I feel strangely confident, Beef, that there will be no falling off the cliff. They may lose some games, but this team looks focused and ready to roll each and every game they go out there at this point of the season.
Yeah, and I think it's going to take a special effort to beat them. I think that's what they've proven the last few weeks. Like, it's going to take something special, and almost I'm talking in cliches, but even if they go up to Blacksburg and run into this buzzsaw that is their offense, especially with their leader Jack Hurley back, like, they may only go 1 of 3 this weekend. That's not necessarily falling off the cliff if they can go 2 for 3 next week and beat USC Upstate during the midweek. So, I think there's nothing but positives. I really don't even. I'm not setting this up because I really don't think it happens. But even if they only win 1 of 3, I think they're still in really good shape to host a regional, just based on their track record. Plus, it's a top 50 RPI team again.
Yeah, well, don't forget we're
on the road.
We're going to get your prediction at the end, so you'll have a chance to tell everybody what you came up with this week. I hope you hit the nail on the head, unless you predict 2 out of 3 losses. Cam Cattarella, 390, 33 RBIs and 18 stolen bases. Will Taylor, 345 for Will Taylor. Cooper Ingalls at 325. Grice slipped below 300, but he's at 299. He's got 12 home runs and 47 RBIs. As we said, Tigers are 32-17, 14-10 the ACC, 11th in the RPI. Casey, this week, they're facing your favorite team. We're joking before the show. Your tweets led me to believe you kind of have an affection for this Virginia Tech team. What do we got with the Hokies?
I did a little bit of a deeper dive, which is probably why. And as with all of my former writing on Rubbing the Rock, I always seem to find the diamond in the rough on the opponents and convince myself that Clemson has no chance. But Virginia Tech is 29-16, coached by John Shepp. He was a name that Clemson fans were interested in making the move in the offseason. He's in his 6th year. He did follow Eric Bakich at Maryland. They're 21-7 at home, which is English Field at Union Bank Park, Atlantic Union Bank Park. That's a mouthful. A little bit of a thing that I got from a Virginia Tech fan today was that it's an extremely fast infield because it's that AstroTurf, and they're convinced that they cut it even shorter to make sure that it gets up on the opponent's infielders even faster. This Virginia Tech team has won 3 of their last 4 ACC series. They actually split a 2-game series because of weather with Duke. So that's their 4th series. So this team is coming. I know JP said it in his preview on YouTube that they are the TBA triplets this week on the mound. But I expect Friday night Anthony Anthony to pitch. He's from Miami, so there's got to be a little bit of Arguelles. Drew Hackenberg, which is a name that Clemson fans should know. It is Adam Hackenberg's brother, sophomore. He should be on the mound Saturday. I was guessing it was going to be Jonah Herney on Sunday, but he pitched last night. They did have a Griffin Green who has 9 starts on the year, but he's been out with an elbow, and I believe they shut him down completely, is what I've heard today. They are led by Jack Hurley, and yes, what's your name, Marty? I have a special love for this guy. Golly, this he mashed last year against Clemson, and he's going to mash again. Hopefully, not nearly as much as he mashed. He's hitting 342, 16 home runs, 45 RBIs. He was out for 3 weeks. His first pitch he saw last night dropped 417 feet. So he's a masher. They got Carson DeMartini, who's a sophomore, 331, 9 home runs. Garrett Michael Michelle, he's hitting 336 at 10 home runs, 41 RBIs. I mean, up and down this lineup, the team has hit 88 home runs as a team. They're 44 for 59 in stolen bases. You know how I love stolen bases. So they do move out there, kind of stress the defense, and they're hitting 302 as a team. Again, Friday night, I believe it's going to be this Arguelles. He's 3-1, 4.35. Doesn't really blow you away there with his stats. 52 strikeouts and 51.5 innings pitched, or 51 2/3 innings pitched. Walks about half a batter an inning, and opponents are hitting 233 against him. Sophomore Drew Hackenberg, 5-5, 4.89, 70 innings pitched, 86 strikeouts. So he's a swing and miss guy, obviously. Opponents, though, are hitting 283 against him, and then we're not sure what's going to happen on Sunday. Eye-popping stat for you to think about. Opponents' ERA, that means Clemson's ERA or whoever they've played, is 8.27 against this team. That scares the bejesus out of me. They have 5.25 as a club ERA, 455 strikeouts and 388 innings, and opponents are hitting 256 against this staff. That's your Virginia Tech update.
Very similar to Coastal. You know, they can mash, as you say. They can mash.
I didn't want to completely plagiarize your video earlier.
I think they got 7 guys in that lineup batting over 300, if I'm remembering that right.
You're 100% correct, and the lowest is 301. Really, they only have one guy that you look at that's like, okay, 225, 5 home runs, 25 RBIs. So, I mean, they're still going to hit the ball.
And they score over 9 runs a game.
Hey, Case, that's a great point because Clemson opponents' ERA is 6.64, so 2-run difference there. Virginia Tech's got the higher ERA.
It was something I looked at. It just jumped off the page when I saw it. So.
Anthony Weeks has a question. You think Clemson is peaking too early? Now, I mentioned this when I was talking earlier. I don't think they are. It's just a slight concern in the back of my head that how difficult it is. They played well for at least 5 weeks, right? 5 straight weeks. It's hard to keep that going for, another 5 weeks, right? Because we got 2 weeks of the regular season, the ACC tournament, and then the NCAA tournament. What's your take, JP?
Yeah, I'm not sure they're peaking too early. I guess it's something to think about, but I'm not sure they are. I kind of look at it like this. Austin Gordon, one thing you worry about is some of the pitchers tiring out. Or that's one thing I worry about when I start thinking about college baseball. Gordon's really the only guy in that rotation that has pitched all season long as a starter. Darden was a midweek guy for a little bit before he got moved into it, but he started out in the bullpen. Grice didn't pitch the first few weeks of the season, so they'll be a little bit fresher than some of these other team starters. And immediately that's where it starts and stops at. With you starting pitching, you're going to go as far as those guys can carry you. And again, I think these guys are getting better with each passing week, and they've won 5 straight ACC series. Not sure. I mean, they might not continue to win at the pace they've been winning at. I mean, they've won 10 of 11 and 16 of 20, if I'm not mistaken. That is a torrid pace. It's hard to keep that pace. But I'm not sure I would say they're peaking too early, or I'd be worried too much about that. I really like this coaching staff. I have a lot of faith in this coaching staff. They seem to know which buttons to push at just the right time, far more often than not. And to me, that's another big key to this.
Agreed, 100%. Austin Gordon's thrown 63 2/3 innings. Ethan Darden, 46.1, and Caden Grice, 50 on the nose. Beef, what's your take on if they're peaking too early?
Yeah, I don't mean to get on the bad side of Clemson fans, but I don't know if we'll know if they're peaking too early unless they go into a tailspin. So I mean, I think it's one of those things. Like if they can win if they win one of three this weekend, I guarantee we start hearing murmurs on the social medias that they're starting to fall off, at least from our feathered friends in the Midlands. But I mean, I don't think they peaked too early. But also, what's the ceiling of this team? What is the ceiling? Is the ceiling truly a national championship? I'm not sure that's the case. Is the ceiling a super regional? Is the ceiling Omaha? I mean, so I don't know if they peaked too early. I think they're just playing solid baseball. I don't even think I know they're hot, but I don't even think like, oh, they're hottest. I think they're just playing really good baseball. It's a lot of fun to watch. Yesterday's game was 3 hours and 20 minutes. I watched every second of that thing. It was wonderful.
And they are playing with a lot of confidence right now. They are playing with a swagger that they did not have earlier in the season. And, yeah, it has been fun to watch over the past 4 or 5 weeks.
You saw it in the pitching staff last night. Even like Will Weiss, who wasn't good last night, still had a little bit of a swagger when he walked off the mound. I mean, like even guys that aren't playing well particularly are still very confident in the next guy or, their teammate. It's fun. It really is fun.
Tell you something a little unknown about Willie Weiss. I'm convinced that kid can play shortstop. You watch him when they take batting practice, he fields the ball at shortstop. And you would swear he was an everyday shortstop watching him out there take grounders. He's making throws to first, spinning, man. I mean, he's got all the athleticism, picking up, catching grounders with his bare hand, which I'm surprised they even let him do. But, I mean, he is phenomenal, man. It's hard to believe.
I don't know if he cares.
He is a relief pitcher. Now, I've been told he's kind of wild, and yeah, he doesn't care. He's one of those, big personality guys.
Wild Willie. Hey, Kurt says that we all three need to wear Clemson hats. I don't really have a Clemson hat I like right now, but I went with the best team in MLB, Casey's former employer, the Tampa Bay Rays. But, okay, I hear you, Kurt. You've been heard. Win the next 2 series, possibly top 8 seed. JP, thoughts on that?
I think you got to do a little bit more than win the next 2. I think you got to win the next 2, maybe even sweep one of them. And I think you got to at the very least, advance in the ACC tournament. You cannot go up there and go 0-2 and not advance out of your pod. If you want to be in the top 8 discussion, you probably need to win at least 5 out of these next 7. And you need to go up there and, to Durham and get out of your pod because you need to be at least probably the 40-win mark.
So what you're saying is don't do what they did last year when they got outscored by 178 runs in 2 games or whatever it was.
Oh, that was painful.
Beef, what's your thoughts on potentially top 8 seed?
I agree 100% with JP. Yeah, I think I didn't know. I would. He knows better with the 5 of 7. I think that's probably right. And avoid that uno dos adios. I mean, you can't go uno dos adios in where is it this year? Durham or Charlotte, wherever it is. Durham again. Yeah, that's the key. Hey, and you also maybe can get some help with some of these teams. South Carolina's kind of in a little bit of a free fall. At least that's what our fans are saying. And there's some other teams that are losing in that top 8. So maybe get some help, keep winning, get some help, and I'll take a back door and do a top 8 seed.
One thing that'll be key, you need to finish in the top 4 of those ACC standings. Get the top seed in that pod play. that gives you a very distinct advantage. You hold the tiebreaker over those other guys.
Yeah. If you're 1-1, you advance. It's crazy.
You just about the only way you don't advance is if you go 0-2. So they're third right now. They would be the 3 seed right now if it started today. So you want to be one of those top 4 seeds.
Okay, good information. Now, they did us a favor this week on the schedule. I always say watch out for the weather because things change in college baseball. They decided to change it before the game day. It's 4 o'clock on Friday now, 7 o'clock on Saturday. That's on the ACC network, and 3 on Sunday. So get some prime time on the Spurtles network this week. 4 o'clock Friday, 7 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. But again, check it out because they often change the schedules in college baseball. It's that time, fellas, where we go for predictions. You guys predict. I make fun of you if you're wrong. JP, 3 games in Plattsburgh. What do you see happening?
2 out of 3. 2 out of 3. I'm riding that train.
All right.
This team's playing with a lot of confidence right now. And they play with a different type of mentality on the road. This team has been very good away from home, and I think that continues this weekend.
Beef?
I know this isn't last year's team. I know this is a new coaching staff, but Hackenberg scares me. The other 2 are wins. I think 2 out of 3 as well.
2 out of 3. 2 out of 3. So I'll also say 2 out of 3. So let's hope you fellows are right or close to being right. We'll take 3-0 again this week. JP, Casey said you've done a preview for the baseball over on allclemsontigers.com, the baseball series this weekend. What else you working on over there?
Stay tuned to the YouTube channel. I might have some recruiting notes for you here in the next day or so.
All right. Notes. Will any sunglasses be involved?
I'm not going that far.
Just notes, no sunglasses. Beef, what's happening over on is there any geniuses you guys were talking about this week?
We got some very good geniuses. We're recording actually tonight for me to be up late to produce it and then put it out in the morning tomorrow. But we got some Notre Dame fans. We got some who else we have? A&M fans. We got some pure geniuses this week. This should be fun.
Now, before we go, Kurt had a question about did Bakich's teams start slow at Michigan and finish fast? We all agree. I think he pushes the right buttons, as JP said a few minutes ago. But I don't know how they did at Michigan. Either of you guys know?
No, but I will find out. I'll do that research for you and find out for you next week.
All right.
I know that year that they went to the College World Series, went to the championship game. If I'm not mistaken, they got off to a slow start that year and kind of.
Weren't they like 51-9?
I can't remember. I want to say they got out to a little bit of a slow. I don't remember. I might be wrong about that. Don't hold me to that. But
I don't know either.
They got out to a little bit of a slow start and then, kicked it in toward there after the season got going. I don't remember exactly when.
Well, as we mentioned, I think we're all 3 confident in the decision-making process in this team, and this coaching staff. And maybe that's why the team has the swagger they have. They also have confidence in the coaching staff.
When you're sitting there watching Clemson play baseball this year, how many times have you sat there and thought to yourself, man, he's left this pitcher in too long?
Only one.
Maybe yesterday with Weiss, but that was it.
I say I go back to the South Carolina series in Olenchuk. And that's not because the game was, on the line. It's just because he was getting the crap beat out of him and get him out of there before he ruined his confidence.
I remember thinking they had left him in that day too long myself. Maybe it was intentional, trying to save some arms for the next day. But it's just not something that has happened very often this year. Nope. I can only think of once or twice off the top of my head. I mean, they have been excellent at managing this pitching staff.
Absolutely. And looks like maybe they figured out Crichton's got a few starts in right field, and he hit the ball for I think his first hit since February the other day. Hadn't played much, but hopefully they'll figure that right field spot out too.
Yeah, he was on fire against Louisville. He had a fantastic weekend. Crichton did.
Yeah, absolutely. Casey the Beef Cregan, Message Board Geniuses, Slogo, Chopping Beef is always good. I listened live this week. Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Clemson Tigers and more. Thank you for your time. Until
Real
next
journalist.
week. What?
I said real journalist.
Oh, real journalist. Yeah.
This
I was
one.
like, who are you pointing at? Your wife in the room? All right. Thanks, fellas. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.